Welcome to our first webcast here, brought to you by the Fantasy Shop, best in comics and games since 1981. We scrambled our brains all day trying to come up with a title for this, and I think you should let everybody know what the title is, Nate.
We've decided that the working title is Illustrated Beards.
Illustrated Beards. So what we're going to do with this, we're going to do this each week. People who've come to the shop, you guys know, we have pick shelves where we put comics that we think are really awesome for the week. We never actually talk about that. I mean, we end up having conversations about other things. It kind of gets overlooked. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to highlight some of the picks that we've done for the week. Each of us, myself and Nate, have chosen a couple of comics that we're going to talk about. A comic that we both kind of agree on is really awesome and needs to be read, and a new trade for the week. So let's get right into it. Nate, why don't you go ahead and start?
All right. My two picks for this week are Walking Dead 108, because any week that this comes out is my favorite week of the month, pretty much. Like, this book upsets me and makes me happy and makes me cry and not laugh ever. I love this book. This especially is probably, this has definitely been my favorite issue, like, in the last two arcs. I'm not with the group of people who say that 100 was a good jumping on point. I don't feel personally that there's a good jumping on point aside from number 1.
I agree with that. If you're going to read it, you have to start at the beginning.
I mean, you can. Like, I'm not gonna say don't jump on at 100. But I mean, in the same note, if you're going to say jump on at 100, like, even this would be a good jumping on point. But really, if you're going to get into the book, I say pick up the compendium. If you're a fan of the show, I say pick up the compendium. It's an amazing way to read the book. Kirkman writes for trades. He writes for collected editions, and it's evident. If you ever catch up with this book, you'll know what I mean when you get a month where you read an issue and you're like, oh, I feel like there was supposed to be a page turn at the end of this issue. But I'm a diehard fan of this book. I really can't say enough good things. The guy on the cover is Ezekiel, and he's got a tiger, and I wasn't sure what to make of that. It was one of the moments where I thought he might jump the shark in this issue, and I read it, and he did not. He's continued to impress me and make me feel attached to the characters. I can't really say anything more about this book. Like, it's awesome. It's a great issue.
All right, well, my first pick here of the week is Batman number 18. Like Nate, pretty much any time Batman comes out, it's going to be my favorite week. Just because Scott Snyder has been doing amazing things with this book since he started it. Yeah, if you've not been reading it, we have the first volume in here in the store. It's amazing. I really highly suggest you pick it up. But that said, what they've done with the first couple arcs of Batman, in Night of Owls, was a very, very big story. It changed how we view Gotham City. And then they jumped right from that into Death of the Family, which was a Return of the Joker story. It was amazing. It had chills, it had thrills, you were sad, you were happy. There was so many things going on. So you wonder to yourself, like, where do you go from there? Like, what do you do to top all of these awesome things that you have done? And this issue is evident that Scott Snyder is not slowing down anytime soon. Spoiler alert, Robin has been killed. Like, that has happened. That happened in Batman Incorporated number 8, and all of the Batman books this month are doing the Requiem for that.
To be fair, Rich Johnston spoiled that like 2 weeks before it happened.
That's true. The articles if you watch the news, they talked about it on the news. It was a huge deal. So you can see the cover here. Robin's boots, little bird sitting on top of them. Really beautiful cover that Greg Capullo did. They got a couple of guest artists to do this issue. It's not a Capullo issue. They got Andy Kubert and Alex Maleev to come in and fill in for Greg Capullo while he's probably preparing for whatever Scott Snyder has up his sleeve next. That being said, this is an excellent single standalone issue of Batman. Those of you that have been keeping up are aware of Harper Row. She is a character that they've introduced that's kind of helping Batman out. And this is something that Bruce is not happy with. He has told her to stop. Of course, she doesn't listen. She's young. But in this issue, she kind of makes a resurgence, and she goes out and she notices that Batman's kind of brutal, like in his efficiency lately. He looks like he hasn't slept. It's all tied in with Robin's death. He's definitely ramped up his game a lot, and she worries that if he keeps this up, that he's going to slip up one of these days and he's going to die. And so she kind of goes to him to explain this to him, and he kind of goes off on her. It's kind of one of those moments where Batman's kind of a jerk. You know, he says to her, you know, what were you thinking? You thinking you just come out here and I'll invite you back to the cave and put a costume on you and let you drive the Batmobile? That's not how it works. If you keep doing this, you will die. And she is a strong character. She is not disenfranchised with this moment between her and Batman. She goes and she appeals to Bruce Wayne, who is funding Batman's organization through the Batman Incorporated story. It's public knowledge now. So she goes to him and she appeals to him, and Batman then comes to her and they have a really awesome conversation where he softens himself to her, and he understands that her only interest is seeing him alive and seeing him continue to do his work, that no one can do this but him. And it's a fabulously heart-wrenching issue when you get to the end. I mean, you feel like Batman has grown as a person through all of this adversity that he's faced over these last few months with, you know, like I said, Owls and the Joker, and now the death of Robin. It's been a lot. It's been a hard road. But I strongly suggest picking up this issue. The art is beautiful. Part 1 is done by Andy Kubert. Part 2 is done by Alex Maleev. Very, very awesome, and I cannot wait to see where they go from here.
Right on.
Yeah.
This is my second pick. Star Wars by Brian Wood.
Amazing.
Yeah. Like, I'm not really even sure where to begin with this book. I kind of wish I could be doing the number 1 just so you could see how excited I was about this book. When I saw this solicited and Diamond previews like 4 or 5 months ago,
yeah.
like, I lost it. Star Wars comics on Dark Horse are what got me into comic books. That is like the root of why this is the first year I'm reading superhero books, is because I got into comics through Star Wars, and from there branched out to more Dark Horse and then Vertigo, and superheroes just weren't on my radar. They are now, and I'm kind of happy about it, which I will talk about momentarily, I'm sure. But this book is great. Alex Ross is doing all the covers. Deanda's doing the art, and Brian Wood. I mean, like, anytime Brian Wood has a book come out, it's at the point where I can put a Brian Wood book on my pull and hold and have it monthly, before I even know what the book is about. Like,
It really is.
I've been trying to avoid picking up X-Men books just because there's 10 years of history there, and I feel like it's going to be a rabbit hole of me reading every X-Men title. And I found out he's going to be writing X-Men, and yeah, like it's all downhill for me from here because of Brian Wood's prominence in the industry right now. But the art in this book has been gorgeous. I mean, this issue, I believe it's page 2, has, I don't even know if you can see it, but this spread is incredible.
It really is.
The general synopsis of this book is it takes place in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and it follows a very tight-knit group of people in the Rebel Alliance, most of whom anyone who's seen the films will be familiar with, trying to find a new home for the Alliance after Alderaan has been destroyed. I don't know if that's a spoiler that Alderaan was destroyed.
I would hope not.
But it follows Leia as the leader of this group, and they're an X-Wing squadron who are completely covert. Their existence isn't known to anyone outside of their squadron and outside of Mon Mothma, the head of the rebellion. And what's great about this book is Star Wars comics they're not approachable to the non-Star Wars initiated at first. There's a few titles that you can say, okay, start here and move on. But I mean, I've done a lot of reading on Wikipedia, which is a real website, to fill in the gaps of stuff comics I've missed or novels I've missed. But this book is great because it takes place in between two films in a span of a couple years that hasn't really been explored all that much in the expanded universe of Star Wars, which finding a point in time in the Star Wars continuity that hasn't been explored is a difficult thing to do. And when you've got one of my favorite writers on a book in one of those rare points in the timeline where they haven't written too much about it, that just makes me really stoked, because there is a lot of room to do things. And I trust Dark Horse, just through experience reading their stuff, not to walk all over the continuity. Yeah, I mean, I can't really say much more without possibly hurting George Lucas's feelings. But this
He
book's
sold
great.
it to Disney, I think.
Yeah, this book's great. I highly recommend picking it up. The first issue is kind of hard to find at this point, but it's one of those that is going to have reprint after reprint, I think, for a good while. At the very least, if you don't pick this up issue by issue, if you're a trade waiter, which I don't use that term in a derogatory manner, I'm a trade waiter at heart. But yeah, if pretty much just buy this book. Like, you have to, because it is amazing. I haven't read a Star Wars book in years, and this has gotten me back into the Star Wars section of the comics world.
Absolutely.
And it's excellent. And this is the first issue with Han Solo in it, so I'm pretty stoked. It's issue 3 of Star Wars by Brian Wood, and it's great.
Right on. All right, my next book that I am going to discuss is Uncanny XMen number 3. Like Nate, I wish that I could have started with number 1, because this is, you know, if you ever look for a good jumping on point following a big event, they're hard to come by. They really are. I mean, they always say, "Oh, this is a good place to jump in," but the truth be told is it's not. I mean, there's so much that you have to know before going into it. You really only, before going into Uncanny X-Men, the only thing you really have to know is that Cyclops killed Professor Xavier.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. And that he was put in prison, he escaped with the help of Magneto and magic, and now he's going around picking up new mutants and reforming a new X-Men team. One of the cool things about this book is, right out of the gate, issue 1...
Magneto looks like a Mandalorian.
Chris Bacalo is really an amazing artist, and he really makes Magneto look incredibly intimidating. I don't know if you guys can see, but he really does a good job with the art. And first issue out of the gate, he goes to S.H.I.E.L.D. and pretty much turns Cyclops in. Says that he's willing to give them information on Cyclops that would help lead to his capture. So, like, for a lot of us, that was a big moment, because Magneto's always kind of a character that's been on the fence. You're not sure if he's a good guy or a bad guy, or where his true loyalties really lie. But I think Cyclops over the years has proven himself to be a leader, and Magneto respects that. At the core of his being, he respects someone who can be followed. And so, reading issue 1, there was speculation between myself and a couple other people that I was talking to that maybe Magneto turning in Cyclops was kind of all part of some big grand plan that Cyclops had. Because that's just who he's become now. He's playing a chess match with S.H.I.E.L.D. He's always 3 moves ahead. But you find out in issue 3, spoilers again, it was actually Magneto's plan. It was his idea to now get S.H.I.E.L.D. on his side, to make them think he is their ally, which was an excellent move. He explains the plan to Cyclops and some of the other mutants that are gathered, and they're completely blown away. Like, they don't even know how to take that. It's genius on his part. It's Bendis. Brian Michael Bendis writes it. He was doing Avengers before the Avengers vs. X-Men event. Now he's shifted and he's doing X-Men, and honestly, he's doing a damn good job. This book has been phenomenal. I can't urge you enough to check it out. If you don't read any other X-Men titles, this is the one you should be reading. It's blown me away. We're only 3 issues in, and I'm done. I'm sold. I will read this book until Brian Michael Bendis stops writing it. So yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about that. The next part of what we're going to do is, every week we're going to pick a book that we can both generally agree is something that everyone should read if they're a comic fan. This week we have chosen Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin, which, again, it's a Requiem title. This seems like the title that is probably the most affected by the death of Robin. Yeah. Because his name is in the title.
Yeah, for obvious reasons. And I'm not normally a reader of Batman and Robin. I picked this book up as soon as I saw it. Honestly, the only DC title I read is the main Batman book. And that's not because I don't like other DC books. It's that, to be honest, at the moment, I've never really read a DC book before I started reading the current Batman, unless you count Vertigo books. And right now, I'm like so overwhelmed with Cape books that I feel like I need to like wait a minute before I move on. But Batman, like you said, Scott Snyder's been blowing my mind. I did at first feel like I wouldn't get into DC heroes, and I was implored by John and by Jason to read Court of Owls, and I read it, and I mean, halfway into the trade, I was like maybe 2 or 3 issues into the trade, and I was sold on Batman. Like, I was questioning why I had never read Batman before at that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
This run has been fantastic. I think that in years it'll be like one of those runs of Batman that is just
history.
Yeah, like that is just looked at like
it shaped.
This is one of those runs that you just have to read if you're a Batman fan.
Yeah.
I picked this up and
this issue in particular, there is no dialogue in this issue. This is an issue that is told entirely through the sequential art, and I mean, Patrick Gleason. I fell in love with him when he was doing Green Lantern Corps prior to New 52. He's an amazing storyteller through his art, and it's evident in this book. I mean, pick it up when you're in here, take a look at it, because it's really, really mind-blowing how well the story is told without any dialogue at all. The only time you're ever asked to read anything is at the very end of the book. Batman finds a note that Robin had left for him, and it's heart-wrenching. I mean,
don't spoil the contents of the note. Don't spoil it. It's too good.
All right, fair enough. I'm not going to spoil the contents of the note, but I will tell you it is a note that he wrote to him before he went out on his last hurrah as Robin, and it's just heart-wrenching. The story is told through Batman just going out for a night of fighting crime, and he keeps seeing himself with Robin. And and then he sees his reflection and realizes he's all alone.
It gave me chills.
Yeah, it's beautifully done, and it's not even something that is going to take you that long to go through. I mean, it's all told in art. You don't have to read anything, so you can just really appreciate how well the story is told.
I mean, if you spend half the time on each page just looking at the art in this issue that you would normally spend reading an issue. I mean, there's a lot to appreciate there, and
it really is,
it's impressive. I mean, if you've ever heard somebody say like I'm a sequential artist, or have you heard of so and so? They're a sequential artist, and you wondered what that meant. This issue sums it up.
Yeah, there are some artists that even with dialogue have a hard time telling a story through sequential art. I'm not going to name any names because I don't want to offend anybody, but there are artists out there that it's you turn a page and you're confused as to the progression of the series of events. This is not the case with this book. It is a beautiful story.
It's completely clear
from beginning to
transitions
end.
From. I mean, it transitions from place to place seamlessly, without dialogue, without telling you where it's gone. There's cues in every panel to help you understand what's happening and what the characters are thinking and feeling. And it moved me with the story without having any lettering or dialogue boxes or narrative boxes to explain what was happening. And that, to me, is an amazing feat of artistic capability and of storyboarding. I mean, like, that's what it comes down to. Obviously, the writer had something to do with that, and that's impressive. They're clearly a fantastic creative team, and I'm considering picking up Batman and Robin on a monthly basis at this point, just because of the display of artistic capability in this issue. It's fantastic.
And it doesn't really ask you to know anything before going into it. The only thing you need to know going into it is Robin has fallen.
I would argue that you wouldn't even need to know that. It's so evident that
it is.
This could be you could pick up this issue and understand like the loss that Batman's going through. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. And it kind of sets the tone for Batman number 18.
Yep.
It really does, because I mean he's brutal. He's a lot more ramped up in his fight against crime.
It makes that clear.
Yeah, he's looking for someone to punch in the face. I mean, he just has this rage behind everything he does in this issue, and it's beautiful. There's nothing more to say about it than that.
It was excellent.
Yeah. So for the last part of what we're doing here with the
trades.
Every week new trades hit the shelf.
Tons of them.
Yeah.
Lots of new trades.
Right.
Every week.
And on Tuesday night, we put them out, and that's why he says tons of them, because it's so evident by the fact that we sit and we put them out. We have to move other things off the shelf and make sure that these trades are prominently displayed. So I am a single issue reader. Nate, I know, has said that he's a trade reader, and he will wait for a trade, which is awesome. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And that's what we're trying to highlight here, is if you haven't read some things because you were skeptical, a trade is an excellent time to save some money and still enjoy a great story.
For sure, yeah.
So.
Trades were my introduction to comics as well. Yeah, the first time I ever read a comic, it wasn't a trade, but my brother had been, from this shop, had been buying Star Wars Dark Times.
Hi, Adam.
And I was going on a trip to Arizona, and he said, "Here, read this on your flight." And it was bagged and boarded the entire first run of Dark Times from issue 1 to whenever their year-long hiatus was.
Yeah.
And I read it, and it was single issue form, but it had been collected for me, and it made it very accessible. Nowadays, I don't read trades as much, just because I am bombarded with single issues on a daily basis, and it's much more approachable now for me to read single issues. But trades are a fantastic thing. Graphic novels are a fantastic thing.
Yeah, some things read better in trade form. I mean, he mentioned earlier, Kirkman writes for trades. I mean, you will get to the end and think to yourself, there should be one more page.
And that's a double-edged sword with him. I mean, that's one thing I love about being caught up with the book now. I caught up with the book by reading, it was 50 issues worth of trades before issue 100 came out, so that I could start buying it issue to issue by 100. And there's pros and cons to reading trades and reading single issues. On the one hand, I'm more on the edge of my seat. I'm more excited about Walking Dead now when it comes out. I'm more excited about all the books that I get monthly than I would be if I was just waiting for the trade. Because if I'm just waiting for the trade, it's in the back of my mind. I'm more liable to forget what's happening in the story by the time the trade comes out. Yeah. And with how many issues I have, I mean, I'm already behind most of the series I'm on. I don't have time to go back and read a trade. But trades are a fantastic way to get into comics if you are an outsider of the comics industry or the comics community.
Yeah.
Trades are a godsend. Should you start or should I start?
I'll start. We'll go.
That was like a trade paperback public service announcement.
That was beautiful, though. The trade I'm going to be talking about is Earth 2. Collects the first 6 issues of this book. I am one of the people who read this book in single issue form. I could not wait for it to come out, because what it meant to the New 52 universe is the Justice Society. And that was always one of my favorite stories to read prior to New 52, because the characters were just so involved. They were so intriguing. There were so many things going on with different characters. When you look at Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, they're very black and white. You know their motivations. You don't have to think about it. But Justice Society introduced you to characters that had so much depth to them as a team, and how they all came together and fit together. And this book is absolutely no exception. I mean, you can see Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman on the cover, but spoiler alert, man, they fall in issue 1. James Robinson came out of the gate and killed the trinity of characters that has held the DC universe together for 50 plus years. And then we are introduced to the next generation of heroes in Jay Garrick, the Flash, and Alan Scott, the Green Lantern. And I know you think Flash, Green Lantern, I know who those guys are, but you really don't if you're not reading Earth 2. It's a different version of the character. I mean, the book starts with Flash getting his powers from the god Mercury.
It's an alternate universe.
Yeah, it is. This is not. Yeah, it's called Earth 2 because it is not the universe that you know, and it's phenomenal. You're introduced to Hawkgirl. The first enemy that they take on is Solomon Grundy, which, man, that's a name that everybody knows is synonymous with a Batman villain. So it was cool to see him used in a different way. And one of the overlying themes of the DC New 52 has been the gray versus the green. It's this life energy and this death energy that have been colliding with one another. And it's very evident in this book, in Alan Scott getting his ring and Solomon Grundy rising. Solomon Grundy represents the gray, and Alan Scott represents the green. And it was just a fantastic battle. I'm not going to lie to you, when I first saw Solomon Grundy, though, I was a little weirded out by the way they had illustrated him. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. He kind of looked like he came walking out of a Marilyn Manson concert. But when you see him in panels with other characters and you realize he's this giant thing, it actually works. It really does. And there's fantastic, another fantastic reason to get a trade and buy a collected edition is some cool stuff that you get as just extras. You know, little sketches of how they conceived these characters, how they came together, a little window into their creative process.
Concept art and variant covers that you might not have had access to.
Right. Variant covers are something that they're expensive. You know what I mean? Like it's I can't justify spending $30 on one comic. It just seems weird.
Well, we both recently have, but yeah.
But it's still one of those things.
Variant covers are one of those things with me, and I think with Jason too, where we oogle at them and we're like, oh, but I can't justify doing that, and then one comes out that we can justify doing it with, and we do it, and then we go on saying like, yeah, but I can't justify. It just comes down to, like, some people are variant people, some people aren't, and then some people are like you and me where we want to not be variant people, but the truth is deep down, if a variant's good enough, like, I'll shell out the money and frame it. Like,
yeah, DC has been doing regular priced variant covers for some of their books. I'm a person who has 2 issues of every Batman book that has come out so far, because I can never. Greg Capullo's art is so beautiful. But then they bring in some awesome person to do the variant cover, and I just can't stop myself from buying it.
I think Providence that Image rarely puts out a variant cover for Walking Dead, because
every now and again they do.
Because
they're always moderately priced, though.
They're always moderately priced, with the exception of like the $100 100.
Right,
that's an exception.
That one was signed by Robert.
Recently, I think it was 106 had 2 main covers. So there was a variant cover that was the same price, very similar to what they do with Batman, except I think the ratios were 50-50. And I'm not sure that that's the case with Batman. And at first I was like, I'm just going to buy the one that has the same letter, the same logo type as normal. And by the end of the day, I had both. I had both in my stash ready to buy them at the end of the day, because I can't not have them. It's an affliction. It's an affliction.
but we're getting off track.
Yeah.
Earth 2 Volume 1 is on my shelf right now. Pick it up. There's nothing better I can say about it. It is just an amazing read. And if you've been looking for a good time to get into New 52, trades are an excellent. They're pretty much done. I mean, I'm pretty sure with this was one of the first wave of new books after books got canceled. So they've started going into printing trades of the new books, which means all the original 52 books have been collected. This one in particular is very, very awesome. It provides similar things to what you get out of Justice League, but presented to you in a different way, which is awesome. I can't say enough good things about it. You're up.
All right. I was laughing at the ability that we have to just go on an ADHD tirade.
If you've been in the store, you know we can do that.
This is clearly not scripted. Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon. This book, I originally picked up this book for the art and from the covers. I had no expectations with Hawkeye. Like I said, I'm not a cape guy originally. People are usually like aghast at this. Like, how can you work in a comic store and not read capes? Like, what do you read? And like I said, 90% of what I read read as I was getting into comics and as I progressed further into comics has been non-cape books, mostly stuff on Dark Horse and Vertigo, especially on Vertigo, and especially stuff that had already ended. So I was, like I said, I was reading a lot of trades, Transmet, all sorts of stuff, you know.
Various different independent.
So as I decided that it's probably time for me to start reading capes, since you know, like, I need to be able to talk about the things that I'm selling. I had a little bit of apprehension. I was worried that I was not going to enjoy the stuff, and this was one of the first books I picked up. The art blew me away. A lot of people I've talked to, it's very like cut down the middle. People either don't like the art but love the story, or don't like the art and don't want to pick it up because of that. I love the art. A lot of people love the art. It's very different. I think his name's pronounced Aja, David Aja. I know he's Spanish, so I imagine it's the same creative team that did the Immortal Iron Fist minus Ed Brubaker. The art is different than Immortal Iron Fist was, but you can definitely see the similarities. You can definitely see that this is the same artist doing a different thing.
It's very minimalist.
It is. It reminds me a lot of like pop art propaganda posters. It's very flat. The colors are what really drive a lot of the art in this book, and it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of guest artistry, but it's clear that David Aja has a hand in all of it as far as inking or coloring. Matt Fraction's writing it. It's fantastic. The synopsis essentially is Clint Barton is the greatest archer in the world. Clint Barton joined the Avengers. This is what Clint Barton does when he's not working with the Avengers. It's kind of like a character study of Clint Barton's days off. But as an Avenger and as a hero, you don't really have days off. So a lot of the book is him. I mean, there's an issue that starts with him trying to figure out how to set up his surround sound and just having like a breakdown about it.
It was issue like 3, wasn't
it? It was, yeah, it was fantastic. And it leads up to him, like that problem leads to him like leaving to go get something from the store, which somehow leads him to getting into trouble with the Russian mafia. Which you will find is a very common theme in this book. Hawkeye's trying to do something a normal person would do. He sees somebody in trouble and cannot resist helping them, and later hates himself for it. It's very much like, why did I have to be a good guy kind of thing. Like, I'm always getting hurt because of this. But he can't stop because he's a hero at heart. And it's a great book. I mean, he's very much a normal person. And that's the first issue. He talks about that. He breaks like every bone in his body. And he's like, I'm surrounded by superheroes and mutants and people who can read minds. And here I am falling out of a skyscraper with normal people bones. Yeah. It's great. The art's great. The dialogue is excellent. The humor, it's a hilarious book, but it doesn't digress from the seriousness of the story. It manages to be funny and serious at the same time. It manages to have some continuity while maintaining a 1 to 2 issue story arc.
It's a good commentary on a guy who has no powers that has to exist in this world.
Yeah.
And what does he do when he's not? I mean, when you read Avengers, he kind of falls into the background of those stories a lot because
he lives in a normal apartment in the Lower East Side and of Manhattan, and it's great. I mean, I really like the book. It takes place on the East Coast. I'm from the East Coast. I love that.
Yeah,
it's just a normal East Coast guy who has an extraordinary job, and it just kind of it's a character study. You get to see his neuroses. You get to see his heroic moments and the moments where he falls short. Another thing about this book is that a couple issues in, it becomes about both Hawkeyes. There's a girl named Kate who he's kind of taken under his wing, and you often see essentially she's his sidekick in this book. And what's funny is there's many times where she's calling him on his BS. Excuse the parlance. But yeah, I really can't speak highly enough about this book. Like, there's not much that I can say that I feel would really do it justice. I've often said I've got 3 favorites that come out on a monthly basis. It's The Massive, and this is no order: The Massive by Brian Wood, Walking Dead by Robert Kirkman, and Hawkeye by Matt Fraction. And if I had to choose one book to read a month, it would be a serious toss-up between these 3. A lot of people are shocked when I say that this book is that much of a favorite to me, because Hawkeye's notorious for being a character that's cool, but that has never really been done right. And this book does it right. Like, they hit the nail on the head. When I read the first issue, I felt like I was reading an independent title about a Marvel hero where somebody had just nailed it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I give it 3 issues and they're going to cancel this book. And now we've got a first trade, and it's well past first trade status. I mean, I expect to see quite a run with this book. First issue's already on the 4th printing, and it's excellent. I couldn't be happier about that. Yeah. So that's what I got for my trade.
Right on. Well, that is gonna wrap things up. We're gonna do this every week. We've got some awesome plans for what we can do with this in the future. Kind of gonna reach out to some people, maybe get some other people's opinions on some things. Hopefully, maybe get John involved, even though he says he really doesn't want to be involved. He's our boss.
Yeah. Try and get Tony up here. Tony's a busy man. Some of you may know him, some of you may not. I bought comics from him as a child. He's a cool dude, and I would love to have him with us talking about what he liked this week.
Yeah, personally, I'd love to see Rick sitting here.
Absolutely.
Talking about things. You guys out there probably remember, Rick. If you don't, he's an awesome dude. He used to run the store.
16 years.
Yeah, 16 years.
Cool dude.
He worked for the company, and he's a really cool guy, and he's very opinionated about the things he loves. So that's something that in the future we need to do. We're definitely going to get some people on here. We'll talk about some things. But yeah, so that's really all I got here.
And if you have any suggestions,
absolutely,
about the format, because this is the first time we've done it, we don't really know how it's going to go over. We don't know how it's going to be received. If you have any suggestions, any requests or advice on how we could go about doing this, feel free to let us know. We are totally open to criticism.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can easily go off on ADHD tirades. Don't really want to script anything, but I'd like to hear some criticism. So
yeah, absolutely, for sure. Well, thanks for joining us here with the Illustrated Beards. We'll see you guys next week. Beards.